Well, for more on what to expect from tomorrow's federal budget, Your Money's host Leanne Jones spoke with Tim Lyford, Head of Tax Specialisation for the Bentleys Network.
The government are anticipating a surplus of around about $30 billion over the 4-year period to 2022. And I think from that they'll be able to have surplus funds that they can use for tax cuts of some kinds and perhaps to fund some of the other areas that are of interest to the electorate, such as hospitals and transport. Unemployment figures are strong, which is good, but I think there is a concern around low wage growth and people's incomes not rising. So my view is I think the government will look to target areas where they can get maximum bang for their buck, which I think will be around some of the areas around tax cuts for individuals. They've done a lot of work on businesses already, so I don't think we'll see too much there, but I'm expecting them to target some tax cuts for individuals. Now, if we look at the personal tax side, there were lots of changes that took place from the 2018 budget where there were reforms to the tax rates for individuals. They're quite complicated and they phase in over a period of time to 2024, but effectively it means that the government's looking to remove one of the main tax bands, the 37% tax band, and expand the 32.5% tax band up to 200,000. But as part of that process, they're introducing something called a low income tax offset, which allows them to refund tax to taxpayers who are lower earners. And this is capped out at the $90,000 tax band. Now, what this does, it produces an offset for the individuals so that they'll have a refund of tax. It's worth about $530 to individuals over the year, and that's effectively a cash refund. I suspect that looks like a very easy way of refunding tax to individuals without then changing the other parts of the system too much. So I think that'll be quite an easy way for them to ramp that figure up, that $530. Perhaps they'll focus on that, push that number up a bit, and use that as a way of passing over.
As you say, it really comes at a very important time, isn't it? A really critical time for the household sector when you have the housing market that's falling, low wage growth, high household debt, as you say, maybe the prospect of rising unemployment as well. Where in particular will it be targeted towards? Will it be more so at the lower end of the tax bracket, you know, towards those lower income earners? Is that really where they're hoping to see? Because they are the ones that tend to spend more in the economy, aren't they?
I believe so, and I think some of those individuals have been affected by other tax changes that have taken place, particularly around the ATO targeting some of the tax deductions that individuals are claiming. So actually we've seen the tax take has increased actually across the board, even though wages haven't risen. Now, Lucy Ellis, the RBA Assistant Governor, had a speech this week where she pointed out that as part of a wider ranging discussion where she made the interesting comment that the tax take has increased, but wages haven't gone up. So what they're doing is taking more tax from individuals by cutting back on deductions that people have claimed. The ATO's technology is better, they're better at tracking things. So actually it's taking money out of the economy. So that's why I think returning some money to the lower paid, the average wage in Australia is around about $80,000. So this tax band up to $90,000 is a great one to target. And if you can put some cash back into those individuals, it's a large number of people, and it will have a much more direct impact for the government in terms of getting bang for their buck, in terms of some of the refunds and putting money back into the economy. So that's what I think they'll target. That's my suspicion.
Yes, well, it looks like this surplus is coming, after a record 11 years in deficit. I know that Prime Minister Scott Morrison recently has been saying that it will represent the day that Australia gets back to the Howard government, where I think they had that $20 billion surplus and about $40 billion in the bank. So obviously we'll wait and see. We talk about the economy more broadly and some of the concerns, the backdrop of a slowing economy, even talk now of a recession. Is there any thinking that maybe they should hold on to some of that money, put it in the coffers for a rainy day, if in fact we were to head down that situation even into a recession?
Well, I think that's always a sensible and prudent thing for a government to do now. Clearly that's government policy and their decision. But also to some extent putting money back into the economy is also valuable if things are slowing down. So if you're targeting money at certain sectors which will help, so the infrastructure targeting seems to have supported some of the underpinning of the economy where people are sort of struggling in terms of other sectors. So perhaps that is a valuable thing to do, so put money back in. So I think you've got to play as a government what you need to do, and sometimes you need to put money back into the economy where things are falling in other areas.
So, Tim, we've spoken about the impact for households and the personal income tax cuts perhaps to come. What about for businesses? I'm just wondering how they are feeling heading into the budget and what sort of changes they're expecting to see.
I think business always looks for a strong economy because it allows it to take decisions and with confidence, it knows what's going on. We understand that there is a downturn potentially in the economy and people are less confident than they have been. And I think that's linked to many of the changes that are happening at the moment in terms of elections and budgets, etc. So there's been a Victorian election, a New South Wales election, the budget's tomorrow, there's an federal election in May. So all these things cause uncertainty for business, which they don't like. So whether the fundamental business environment is bad or not, they don't want to take decisions, so they hold back from making decisions, which I think then has a bit of a sort of loop of keeping things where they don't make the decisions they need to. So I think businesses are in a decent place. What they're looking forward to is certainty, and they need to get all these things out of the way so they can understand where they're going. We have the coalition government, which is very much focused on a strong economy and business and jobs, which I think is what
and they tend to be very much pro-business, don't they?
That's right. They tend to be focused on that. Now, clearly, Labour's equally interested in business.
Sure.
But it's coming from a slightly different angle. So the angle for the coalition is more around pushing a strong, stable economy for business to grow and create jobs and employment. Labour clearly is very interested in that, but they also want to create opportunity for others, and they see there's a degree of unfairness and inequality, so their focus is slightly different. They come from two different sides. So I think our business customers and business clients are looking for stability. They're looking for some degree of simplicity as well. I think they want things to be stable and easy, and with changes, that's not easy, so it probably holds off decision-making processes.
So speaking of this political uncertainty, and if we tie in the budget tomorrow against the federal election, which is coming up in May, do you think this budget perhaps is make or break for the coalition's election chances?
That's a difficult question, Leanne. Tax is always an important part of people's thought processes when they're voting, but I don't think it's the only question they have in their minds. They have a community interest at heart too, and there are a lot of other questions that they have and a lot of other interests such as transport infrastructure, electricity prices, the environment, schools, hospitals. So I think those will all feed into a wider picture for the voter. I don't think they'll make a decision purely on tax. So whilst the current government would want tax to be the key driver, and if they're able to do things in the budget tomorrow, they would hope that influences the voters. I think voters are broader thinking than that and will probably look at the whole picture before making a decision.
Let's talk about the potential changes under a Labor government, because we have heard that Labor's vowing to scrap negative gearing concessions from the 1st of January next year, if in fact it wins the next election. What are the implications, particularly for households, because they are looking at changing negative gearing and capital gains tax? What are the implications under Labor's proposed changes?
Well, there's a broad suite of changes Labour are proposing, and they're linked to their fairness and inequality agenda. So I think you've got to look at this and stand back from it all. I've broken down those changes into probably two sort of broad areas. One is around the investment landscape, which, as you say, affects households in terms of their investments, the properties and the assets they hold. And the other is a sort of broader one around avoidance, and Labour's looking at tackling where it sees tax being avoided. So if you turn to the investment landscape and where that's affected, it is affected by the negative gearing changes. There's also the removal of cash refunds on franking credits and potential changes to the capital gains tax discount. So those three together are going to dramatically affect the investment landscape because they are going to take more funds out of the economy in that respect. On the other side, the avoidance sector piece that the Labour Party are putting is broader, and it's around structures. So they're looking at a minimum 30% tax rate for trusts. Now, a lot of businesses are held through trusts, so it will have a very large impact. So the two combined will impact on the business sector.